Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our weekly live Q&A. Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Fred and Catherine Rains from Lockerbie Working Dogs.
Fred and Catherine will be picking who they think is asked the best question of the night, and they will win a bag of Enduro high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat.
Hey guys, how you going?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Settling in on a cold night down there?
Yeah. 3 kids are asleep, so let's hope it stays that way.
We got one hanging on down the bottom there trying to fall asleep.
Yeah. He's back asleep, but he likes to throw a limb out every now and then, so we'll just see how that
goes. So besides the 3 kids, what kept you busy today?
Well, I'm getting ready for shearing and scanning as well, scanning ewes as well. So, yeah, just getting sheep up and organised and prepping the shed and, processing a few ewes as well, just to try and cut down the workload while we're going. But, yeah, so it's been our day pretty much, yeah.
I've got school holidays, so yay!
Lucky you. So who's the busy one at the moment? And who's the one nearly?
Oh, well.
It's like that, isn't it? It's bloody full on.
One long adventure, Dan.
It is. You're both doing some wrestling.
That's it.
So we'll jump into it there. Do you want to introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. You want to go first?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Fred Rains. Look, I live I manage a property just out from Cootamundra, mixed farming enterprise. I've been on the land since I was 17. Used working dogs right from then. One of the first guys I worked for had very good dogs, so I sort of got a good foundation in it right from the start and seeing what they were capable of. And I've sort of worked as a jackaroo and sort of a livestock manager, and then I'm sort of now in a full manager's role here at the property's Brawling Springs. So I don't know what else to tell you really.
Beautiful. And at 17, mate, did you grow up on the land, or was there just an aspiration to be there?
Look, my dad had he'd been out on stations and he'd worked in the Northern Territory, Queensland. He was a head stockman, and that was sort of before I was born. But then he was doing a lot of contract work, like a casual farm work, when I was a kid, and then Mum and Dad broke up when I was pretty young, but around 11. But I've sort of always enjoyed the stories he told about being on the land, and and then I actually went into town with Mum, only a small town, Wilmington in South Australia, and went to school from there. But I ended up getting a job with a large company in the southeast, and started jackarooing when I was 17. So ended up cutting it, but was sort of always had a love for the land and that sort of thing.
And always in New South. Well, obviously you grew up in South Australia, but always in New South Wales working around, or have you travelled around?
No, look, I was in South Australia till I was about 33. Actually, I worked down in the southeast. I worked for Water Valley Pastoral for a long time. I did have 1 year out of it, but I was with Water Valley Pastoral for 15 years. I sort of worked my way up through the ranks within that company. And then, when was it, 2014, 13, 2000?
They moved.
Yeah.
We moved to New South Wales 2014.
Yeah, 2014 we moved to New South Wales and took a job at near Gundagai on a property called Kangaroo Mountain. And we were looking for a bit of a change, and I managed there for a couple of years, and then worked on another property at Bowning for the Kelly family, and then for another couple of years, and then ended up getting a job as a livestock manager to start with Romani Pastoral Company. So that their main property is at Harden, but yeah, we're on the Brawlin Springs, the block over near Cootamundra, and yeah, sort of been here ever since. I think we came here in about 2017, was it, or 2017? I think
2018.
2018.
5 years.
5 years, yeah.
5 years and a
Time
couple of
flies.
days.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
And Catherine, what about yourself? Obviously, you're in the deep end now with on the property, a mother. You got the dogs around. You're not just babysitting kids, or that's not babysitting; they're your own. I get in trouble for saying that, but
Right.
you got young dogs around as well.
Yeah.
How that all come to be?
Well, actually, I grew up in Melbourne, and when I was a kid, I wanted to be a vet, and then when I went to uni, I didn't really work very hard in the first year. So, because to do vet, you have to do first year science, and I didn't work very hard. So, anyway, I did a zoology degree instead, and I did sort of animal behaviour was part of that, and I actually thought I was quite interested in that. And so then when I finished my bachelor, I wanted to do more stuff with behaviour, but I really wanted to do dogs predominantly. And that wasn't really, I couldn't see that as an option at uni at the time. And so I just went and did a course with the National Dog Trainers Federation and
Yep.
Started training dogs, and I trained for them. I was there, ran their course because they run a course for dog trainers. I ran their course for a couple of years. Worked for a company that was associated with them, trained dogs at kennels, had my own business doing private lessons and puppy schools and that sort of stuff. I used to do a lot of behaviour consults. That was a lot of my business was either young dogs, puppies and young dogs, or dogs with issues, which was the main sort of thing in my own business. And then I was getting it was all getting a bit stagnant, a bit, the same. So I went back to uni and I did a Master of Animal Science. So, which was like a coursework master's. So you did coursework stuff as well as a research project. So whenever I could, I focused my assignments and that sort of thing on dogs. I do know a bit more about pigs and chickens than I ever thought I would. But, we did a bit on sheep, but yeah, pigs and chickens, I think we did the most sort of stuff on. And then I went on and started a PhD. I didn't finish. I was a couple of years in, and then, moved to the country and, gained 10 or so kelpies, and I actually bought my dogs off Fred while I was still in Melbourne and still had my own business and stuff like that. And then, and now I would say that when I was in Melbourne, my dogs got more time on sheep than they do now because I've got 3 kids and I don't get out there very often at all. So
it wasn't flowers that got you over the line; it was kelpies.
Yeah, well, he got them back. We got a lot of litters out of Storm. I bought Storm, and then we bred a lot of litters from Storm.
So is that how you guys met?
Yeah, through dogs. Yeah.
And obviously you were in Melbourne then and doing like your behaviour stuff and whatnot, coming out and spending time on stock with Fred and whatnot there. Yeah. And what was the attraction there with not with Fred, with the dogs, with the working dogs? We won't get into that. We'll keep it PG. With the working dogs compared to the behaviour consults you're having.
Look, I guess I got into it mainly because when so I bought Trigger and then I bought Storm, and Storm, like right from when I first had her out, you know, she was always working the other dogs, and you know, I had friends that did you know, herding and that sort of thing, and they're like, oh, you know, you should get her into it. And I, you know, I said, oh yeah, get into that, because I used to, like, I competed with the dogs in agility and obedience and that sort of thing, but I thought, oh yeah, we'll give that a go, because Storm was really strongly into it, and that's sort of, I guess that's sort of how I kind of got going, and then going out on the farm. I think the biggest difference, I think, is obviously the stock, and you can train dogs, and you can have, you know, them really working with you really well, but when you add in that element of stock, it's a whole different ball game, because you can't train them. You can't train the sheep. If you could just do this so that I can train the dog to do this, that would be really handy. You know, there's none of that. So that was the biggest difference. But then, which has obviously made it harder, but I also really, it's a different challenge, isn't it? You know, made it more interesting, I think. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, saying that, I seen a video of a lamb the other day that healed better than any of my dogs. So I was a bit jealous of that particular lamb. and,
Nice.
and just to touch on your behavior stuff there, you mentioned like puppy stuff and then issues. Did you find a lot of like issues arose from your client base because they weren't rectified as pups?
Yeah, I guess, you know, that early, like, a lot of people aren't aware of, you know, socialization and that sort of importance of that when they're pups. And then, you know, I mean, your young dog issues, you're going to get your young dog's issues anyway, you know. Like, people would call up and say, oh, I've got the dog's doing this, 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 and this. And I'd be like, so it's about 8 months then? And they're like, oh, how did you know? Because that's just what they're like. But yeah, I guess, you know, probably a lot of human management, not knowing what they're doing. Just, I mean, you know, if everyone knew what they were doing, I wouldn't have had a job. So, but yeah, I had a lot of dogs with dog issues, and I had a great dog of my own, Kayla, who she was very, very well trained, and she was really good on the job, and so I could use her, because obviously the issue when you're working with dogs that have issues with other dogs is having a controlled other dog to be able to, you know, work with thresholds and that sort of thing. And so she was really, I couldn't have done it without her. And when she died, she was only 8, and I was kind of a bit lost for all my dog-to-dog stuff, because I'm like, now we kind of have to use people that are out walking, and it just was nowhere near as, you know, clear for the dogs and for the people and everything, because they could also, you know, a lot of the stuff, particularly with dogs, with issues with dogs, or well, even when they've got issues with people too, is the owners lacking the confidence, and so the dog's just feeding off that, you know. So by having a dog that they trusted that wasn't going to move, they could be more confident, and then their dog could you know, feed off that confidence. And it's sort of, you know, I used to just tell them, you know, you can be inwardly terrified, but you have to be outwardly confident with what you need to lie to your dog and tell them that you're confident, you know. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And are you still doing any of that now, or just sort of your own dogs at home?
Just training kids now.
Yeah, it's just the kids, man. It's it's all kids.
Principles, isn't it?
I think about doing it, and then you know, I remember what it's like to have clients. And, you know, because dog compliance is pretty good, but owner compliance is pretty bad, and
it can be challenging at times.
It really can be, yeah. And like, you know, when it's, you know, Fred and I wrapped up I was ready to, you know, at the time I was just, as a, you know, I mean, I went back to uni because it was all getting a bit the same, and I was just getting, you know, people like, it's great that people will pay you to tell them how to train their dogs, but if they don't do any work, it's like beating your head against a brick wall. And it's just, you know, I had this phase where I thought, maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. None of these dogs are getting any better. And then I had a client that actually did what I said, and the dog got remarkably better. And I'm like, thank you very much, because I feel a lot better.
You need a bit of confidence back.
Yeah, I did. I'm starting to think maybe I don't know what I'm doing, but it's, like, I mean, it's like with anything. People think, I'll just pay for the dog trainer to come and it'll miraculously fix my dog. And, I mean, I'm a culprit. I go to the physio and then I don't do my exercises and I have to go back. So,
Well, it's needless to say that any pup that leaves your camp has had a good start to life and as well socialised with dogs and kids too.
Yeah, and that's really important. You think, we've got a lot of dogs and we don't always have a lot of time, but I always make sure that our pups and our young dogs get that real socialization and handling and all of that sort of stuff. And so then it's not so bad if they don't get a lot of time for a little bit, because, they've had that early good exposure, and that you can sort of, I think it's easier to get them back to doing what you need them to do.
Yeah.
So once you've ridden a bike, like you come back years later and you kind of get the idea and get back on it, right? But if you never got on it to start with, well, you're starting from scratch again.
Yeah, that's it.
So do you remember your first dog there, Fred?
My first dog, working dog was called Trigger, actually. And
was that one you inherited from our wife, or?
No. It was a pure coincidence. Yeah, I didn't know that his first dog was Trigger.
Yeah, and he was pretty ordinary, actually. It was a pretty rough start to the whole working dog thing. We didn't get along real well, but that was the first one. But then, I went on from there. I had another dog called Skip, I think was my next one, and I'd spent a fair bit of time with my boss at the time, who was good with dogs. We spent a fair bit of time together with him, and he came up reasonable. I thought he was a superstar at the time, but as your expectations grow more.
And always Kelpies?
No, I've had a few collies as well. One of the dogs I first started yard dog trialing with was a collie, and he wasn't too bad. He made it into the open arena, and he didn't win too many when he was in there, but he often made finals and whatnot. But he handy enough.
Only Kelpies recently.
Though. Yeah, only Kelpies recently.
Yeah.
We we used to talk about it occasionally, and then we thought, let's just concentrate on what we've got for now. Branch out later when the kids have moved out, maybe.
And is there a preference on the type of style of dog that you like to have in your camp?
Yeah, look, I've always sort of not always, but I in dealing with a lot of dogs over the years and having to do a lot of stock work, I've always lent towards the busier type of dog, like a dog. I always sort of thought that you can slow a fast dog down, but you can't speed a lazy dog up. Yeah, and so I've always looked for your more practical dogs, like always plenty of eye cover, that sort of thing, but maybe a bit busier, a bit stronger. Just for that sort of practical work, being able to shift over to cattle, being able to work in the yards. Often the type of dog that we've bred have been dogs that they've had the ability in the paddock to cover and hold, but have always been inside the flight zone a fair bit. So, training, they need a fair bit of training to stay out and off their stock. But yeah, for general getting work done on big farm enterprises, I've always found those sort of dogs suited me better. They give me a few more grey hairs, but they get a lot more work done. Yeah.
They're not for the.
And how about you?
No.
How about you, Catherine? Are you sort of on the same path, or do you guys like a different style of dog?
No, I like them too. Fred's always like, "Oh, this one will be nice and easy." I'm like, "I don't want the easy one." But from a practical perspective, he looks at it from a practical perspective though, because I'm not out working on the farm, and so it's not realistic to take the ones that just
Intense
need to
ones.
really be intense. But I think I still do like that kind of dog. The kind of dog that will give you a few grey hairs, because the kids don't give me enough. Or maybe it was before kids.
And those particular dogs, Fred, do you find you spend more time training them, or do you prefer to put miles under them to try and ground them a bit?
Look, I've done a bit of both. I did a lot of dog trialing. Up to the last couple of years till I took over managing this place. But I have spent a fair bit of time in the training pen, but I've like that type of dog in particular. They do need miles. Like they do need miles in the paddock and in the yards to if you're the sort of dog, if you were only training them, they'd take a lot of screwing down without the actual big workload. They're dogs that need to go to work, basically.
Yeah. And do you want to tell us a little bit about your current team?
Well, they actually in the role I'm in now, I like it's the full management role of the property, so I'm looking after the actual business a lot more, and I spend a lot of time working on the business and less in it, even though I'd love to be in it more. Look, the current team, I sort of finished up as livestock manager, and they're pretty much the same crew of work dogs. They're just a little less fit, and their skills aren't quite sharpened, and they knock up a lot quicker, that's for sure.
They still do a good job, though.
Yeah,
they're just not at their peak performance.
Yeah,
which is not.
Who are some of your main dogs then? Who I get through a lot.
Look, some of the main ones, I've got a dog called Dusty, who's by Bokkawanda. He is actually a bit paddocky type dog, but a good outside dog. And I've still got Lockerbie Minky, which is a Kippercoot Polly son, a Kippercoot Polly out of Barkell Twisty, which we bred a lot of that bloodline, the Twisty Polly pups, and they're fairly intense. He's getting a fair bit of age on him now.
He'd be a bit older now, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
he's 9. He's just turned 9.
Yeah, and
he looks about 15.
Yeah,
he's done a lot of work, that dog.
Yeah, but he's still part of the crew, and he's an arrogant dog, but he's been a good dog. He's won a lot of trials and things. He's been a fun dog to compete with too.
The number of times when he was young that Fred's like, "We're selling him," and we're, "No, we're not." He would have been sold 50 times over, I reckon, that dog, wouldn't
he? Couple others you'd like to mention there at all?
Asher. What's Asher? I've got to remember now.
He's out of Rain.
He's Rain. So Rain is Tundabadi Buster daughter, and
out of Stormy. Rain's out of Storm.
Yeah, Rain's out of Storm by Tundabadi Buster, and the father was actually a Josh,
True Blue Josh.
Yeah, True Blue Josh grandson, son. So he's a Josh grandson.
No.
Asher's
Asher's out of Ben.
Ben, which is So Asher's a grandson.
Asher's a grandson.
Yeah. So he's got Josh.
We've got a lot of dogs.
Yeah, it gets confusing.
You've got a bit of your own family tree happening there now, don't you?
Yeah.
And I know that you've recently lost one of your best mates there, Catherine.
Yeah, Stormy. Storm. She's had mammary tumours before, and we've had a few removed, but she got a big tumour on her shoulder that we had removed, and we didn't get it tested, but she probably had lymphoma or something like that. So, and it just got to the point where she, when Stormy doesn't want to play toys anymore, Stormy's done.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
sometimes they just don't live long enough for us, do they?
No, well, she was only 10. I mean, we've still got Emily, which is her mother. She's out on the veranda there, and like, other than being a bit grey, you wouldn't know, and a bit deaf, you wouldn't know that Emily was the age that she is. She'd be 13, I think, 12 or 13. But it's just how how the things go, I guess, and poor old Stormy.
Yeah, it's sad. And maybe after when the kids get a bit more mobile themselves, it might another dog hit your side of the camp.
Yeah. Look, I tell myself that I will be, I'm like, this year I'm going to get out and train some dogs, but we really don't have a good setup at home for training. It needs to be something where you can get out and train quickly, and we don't really have that set up. So I haven't really done anything, but in the meantime, I'm just going to have to steal the other work dogs for trialing. Fred is forever telling me he doesn't have time to trial. So, when I saw you guys a couple of weeks ago, I had Asher and Sophia. They're happy to trial for me. Minky loves me, but I'm not sure that Minky would. I think Minky would stick his finger up at me and go, hey, look what I can do. Look, he might not, but I don't think I really want to go out there and have him do that because, he can cause some chaos.
Fair enough.
So, yeah. And Dusty too. Dusty's very one-person dog, isn't he? I don't think Dusty would work for me either. But Asher and Sophia are okay. They will.
So funny how that happens, eh?
Yeah.
Like dogs just pick their person and then everyone else is just like white noise.
Yeah, that's it. And I noticed, the dogs that Fred had when we got together, if we were, when we were together, they wouldn't even acknowledge me, basically. They would just, listen to him. If he wasn't there, they would absolutely do what I asked them to do. Just in a general, getting around and that sort of thing. And now, obviously the dogs that we've got now are the ones that have been around since I've been around. And so I'm much more likely to get them to listen to me when he's there. In fact, when he's around, they still will do what I want, but if not when they're stock. If they have a choice, do I go with Fred or do I go with Mama? I'll go with Mama because, she yells at us less.
And Fred, who were some of your main, or was there one influential dog that stood out for you in the time that you've had your dogs been working them, and what made that dog special?
There's probably the one overall. Like, are you talking about my own dogs? Not
any dogs you've owned?
Yaluka Inman would be the one, probably the most. He'd probably be the best dog I ever had. Him or Polly, Kippercoot Polly. Him and I probably owe a lot as to him as far as having a good name in dogs, and him and Polly, trial wise, work wise. They're both incredible dogs. Inman was a very good paddock dog and just really smart. Super intelligent. You lose him out in the bush with a few lambs, and you might not see him for I know lamb marking. If we had lambs escape, I could sort of leave him with the escapees, and we'd be landmarking away, and he'd turn up an hour later with them, and on his own, he'd work independently. Just a terrific dog. But that'd be. He'd done great things trial wise. He won. He won a New South Wales state championship. Won heaps of trials. He was dog of the he's Norris Dog of the Year for South Australia. Was a big
New
part.
South Wales Dog of the Year.
Oh, he was New South Wales Dog of the Year 1 year too. He came runner up in one Australian, I think. Won Hamilton Sheep Vention. There's a pretty big list of accolades that he's done, but I can't remember them all now. But he was just actually he was the dog. Before Kat and I got together, Kat watched him trial at Hamilton. That was actually the Hamilton trial he won. And I think that's what initially brought her to me, was watching him work. So
get her over the line.
Oh, wasn't it? No, it wasn't.
That wasn't the year that he won.
It was the year before. That's right. Yeah,
it was 2 years before.
Anyway,
you already had her on the hook, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Well, actually, the reason that obviously I liked Inman, but Fred, I think it's changed a bit now, but watching that trial, I was a trainer from the city, but when Fred was running Inman, he's actually when Inman did something good, he actually would tell him and he'd praise him and that sort of thing. And I think you see it more now, but it certainly stood out to me at that day that there was not a lot of praise. And I'm like, he actually likes his dogs. And then, talking to him like they do, he'd do little tricks and stuff with them, which is all that connection building and that. So that's, but yeah, the Innie man, he was our ring bearer at our wedding.
Oh, really?
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
What trick did you teach him for that, Fred? Did he have to have paws up or anything, or just walk a straight line?
No, he just had to walk down the aisle.
Yeah, just a bit of a walk-in whistle.
Yeah,
he was a character of a dog though. I taught him to where I could just shoot him, pretend to pull up a gun and shoot him, and he'd drop dead for me. And he was quite good at it. But he'd when you were doing it at home, it would be sort of I'd do it, and he'd sort of throw himself down and get back up. And it was sort of it was just repetition to him. But I took him to I was doing demos at the Adelaide show, and I just finished doing a run through a sort of a mock trial type thing. And at the end of it, I sat him down and I shot him, did the pretend shooting him thing. And he sort of got up on his rear end and wobbled and fell over so dramatically. Like he was a proper show pony.
He was a show,
yeah.
wasn't he? He'd be and with big trials too, he'd be like, right, let's see what I can do this time. He was a show off.
Yeah, he was a show off. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I love that because, like you said, Catherine, just the playing with him and all that bond. I think that's it's becoming more prominent. People are seeing it, but I think it was overshadowed for years where people just went, they're just work dogs. But there's so much more than that, right?
Yeah, that's it. And that's been a big thing. I mean, that's always been a thing of Fred's, is that connection. And obviously when you're training not working dogs, it's quite a prominent thing anyway, that, you're well bonded to your dogs and that sort of thing. But, we've done that in our schools and people are like, I can see that and how important it is.
Understanding how connection works, so get making a conservative effort on it, when you're in the training process, in negativity, if you can picture a beam of connection between you and your dog, negativity shrinks that beam, and positivity opens it up. So throughout the training process, it's sort of fluctuating between the two, and if you're feeling like you're going down a path where you've got a lot of negativity and that beam is shrinking, you've got to consciously think about how I can open that beam of connection up again. So by going back to something positive in the training process, but to be conscious of it, because it's easy to get down on a dog and keep going until you've blown them all together and they've left you. but just understanding that beam of connection is starting to shrink and doing what you can to open it up again and being conscious of that. And that can be through anything. That's where a lot of, we're doing tricks and playing with dogs. Just doing something to do something positive.
Actually, I really, really, really like the way you explain that, Fred. Yeah. For a couple of people out there that might be a little bit novice, what are some of the signs there when you can tell maybe you are going down that path a bit too far? Like what might your dog be doing?
Yawning. It's funny one. If they start yawning and sniffing the ground,
lip licking.
Yeah, lip licking. It's starting, you're working the mob of sheep and their eyes are starting to look over the fence and other things like, displacement behavior. They're sort of signs.
I think one of the things a lot of people do though too is that, like if you're trying to get the dog to do something and they're continuously failing for whatever reason, the dog in that moment, they can't do it. So you need to change what you're doing. There's no point in doing the same. What is it they say? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yep.
So, just because, and, dogs can, sometimes they can do what we're asking. And then some days, maybe it is a bit hard for them. My brain is sometimes far more switched on some days than on others.
Yeah.
And our dogs are the same. So I think, when people are seeing and the dog starts, their whole posture starts to go down and they're just getting flatter and they're not getting anywhere, is just make it easier for them. If you were expecting the whole race, I mean, obviously when you're at work, there's there's obviously a conflict there, but sometimes you've got to take what you can get and get a win and build that confidence back up in the dog to then be able to continue with what you're trying to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Got a question here from Nat Grimmer, and she asks, you talk about working different stock before. What do you believe makes a good all-round dog, particularly on cattle?
On cattle, strength. Look, for cattle work, yes, strength, walk up strength. I guess to be fairly patient, draw a line in the sand. I've always found working cattle. You want the dog to be strong, but you only generally want them to do enough to get a result. You don't want them to sort of fly in and cause a fight that's not necessary. Do enough that's necessary, I suppose. I don't feel like I answered that very well.
Yeah,
but
anyway. No, you did. You answered it really well, mate. And do you think sometimes people get caught up in strength where they think, this big, hard-hitting dog that's just harassing things and making things move compared to the dog that you just kind of explained or, described then?
Yeah, I think you can. Like, I think a good, this is just my humble opinion, but a dog on cattle that can will raise its level of intensity to get its result. So if it can just turn a cow with a nip on the nose gently, it'll take that option. But if they can read the beast in front of them and up the ante if needed or back it down if they need it, I haven't seen a lot of dogs with that trait, but I have seen a few, and I reckon that's your ultimate cattle dog that can read the cow in front of it and adapt with its intensity to be able to get the result at once.
Do you know what you just? Yeah. Do you know what you just described? Then you absolutely just described what Catherine mentioned about training that pup that feels a bit too much pressure from a human perspective.
It's all the same. Psychology is all the That's what my PhD was on, learning and the psychology of learning. And it doesn't matter whether it's dogs or kids or husbands or or cattle or sheep or whatever. It's just having that good understanding that, sometimes a bit of pressure is good, too much pressure is not good, and too little pressure is not effective either. It's finding that balance.
And knowing when to apply it and when to, retreat a bit, giving a bit of a bit of reprieve.
Yeah. I think from doing stuff with dogs with behavior issues, that is really obviously quite a prominent thing, especially if you're dealing with a dog that's, got dog to dog aggression or something like that. You really need to be able to take that pressure off. It's quite a big thing for them. It's a very stressful thing to be faced, with your fear of a dog, and a lot of dogs, particularly in fear aggression, for dogs that have fear aggression, the purpose of that aggression is to make themselves look really scary and scare the other thing and say, oh, I'm so tough, you don't want to come near me because I can rip your head off, that kind of thing, which is not actually, it's a lot of bluff, I think, a lot of the time. But you can't have that dog in that state all the time. That's obviously really stressful. So if you're going to put them in a position where they're coping, but that's where they're going to go, you've got to make sure you take off that pressure. And I guess that's probably helped with, stock and training dogs on stock, is knowing when to take that pressure off the dog so that they can recover from that situation, so they can come in again, and maybe you can push them a bit harder once you've taken that pressure off.
And you guys touched earlier on obviously your dog schools and whatnot. How about, have you come past dogs that work stock out of fear aggression, and how have you kind of tried to swing those dogs around?
Are you
fear aggression on
you say dogs that work stock with fear aggression?
Yeah.
It's funny. You mentioned that. Look, well, firstly, to address your question, is building confidence in strength. I mean, we've got an exercise that we do in a school where we have a sheep and a head bale, and there's a little race coming off the front of it, and the objective is with the dog is to be able to walk that dog straight in on that sheep's head and work out where its comfort zone. So a couple of things will happen when you're walking that dog in on the sheep's head. They'll walk comfortably to a point, and then they'll either want to back off and run away, or they'll want to attack. And the objective to build confidence and strength in the dog is to take them to where they're comfortable, where they'll walk in on that sheep to where they're comfortable. And you might do that a number of times, and then the objective is to take them one more step past their comfort zone without them busting or trying to take off, and then rewarding that. And then over a progression of time, getting them closer and closer to the head of the sheep, building their confidence and walk up strength. You'd be over a matter of weeks. Just getting them to walk, to take one extra step, then they're comfortable, without busting. That's how I've dealt with dogs that do use fear aggression and bust very easily. So that's what I've done to build strength. I mean, at the end of the day, you'll improve. I mean, a dog that acts like that out of fear aggression is actually a bit weaker dog. Well, that's what I feel. And you can improve them, but they will always not be as strong as a naturally strong dog, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, if they put under pressure, they'll revert.
But you can improve them. But on the same token, dogs with that fear aggression, and those weaker dogs that will sort of opt to bark or attack, because they are that little bit weaker, can actually, I've had a bitch in the past, Emily, who's very much like that, who's a really awesome, like a very good handy work dog, just because she's got this attitude is that I'll get you all before you get me. And so she's in the yard. She's extremely loud and boisterous and back and bark and go like the clappers. But it's all from a place that she's not confident. So she's got this whole I'm going to get you all before you get me attitude.
Yeah.
And it makes her actually quite a useful yard dog. She's getting quite old now, but yeah, so you can use it, even though sometimes you can use those. That what can be a weakness in the dog can be used as a strength. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Same when you're working here on cattle.
Yeah. Actually, I found the cat just made mention. I found that when I was working cattle with her too. If I had a standoff and nothing was happening, I'd often send her in to at least just pick a fight to make something happen, because the others would be in a Texas standoff and there'd be strong dogs just eye to eye with the cows, and she'd pick a fight and at least she'd get something happening if we weren't getting anywhere. She'd pick the fight and the others would finish it, sort of thing.
So use that bit of that weakness to your advantage and to the team's advantage.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you mentioned there, like, working different types of stock and different like parts of the country. Like, what about the terrain, mate? What kind of, have you worked a whole different range of type of country?
Definitely, yeah. In South Australia, it was all flat, and probably the challenges down there was the tea tree scrubs.
Yeah,
there was some flat ground, but it was all scrub blocks. Not all scrub blocks, but there was a lot of tea tree scrub blocks where we were getting sheep and cattle out of, and that could be quite challenging. You'd have to have a dog that could search and use its nose through the scrub a bit. And then that was down South Australia, and then moving up to Kangaroo Mount out from Gundagai. That's an extremely rugged block, very steep hills, a scrub as well. But yeah, I mean, at Kangaroo Mount, you would just actually you couldn't. It'd be nearly impossible to do a lot of the work without a dog. There was places you couldn't get. The only way to get to the livestock was to send a dog. We did a lot of horseback and using dogs there, and but I've also worked a lot of flat open country too.
So now I understand why your term of your dog's been unfit compared to some of the work you would have done before to now. Like, that terrain, like Kangaroo Mountain there on horseback, your dogs were doing miles on the ground before they even seen stock.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that tailing out behind a horse. Yeah.
So now your expectations are pretty high, right? Like, for fitness and whatnot as well. Where some people might look at your dogs and go, "Oh no, they're heaps fit."
No, they're pretty unfit. They really don't get to go to work a lot.
I need to sort of teach them how to do office jobs or something.
When you
I often think about teaching them to do something else.
When you teach them how to get back to emails or messages, can you let me know, please? It really makes work a lot more easier.
So what age do you guys go about starting a pup on stock, and what do you start them on?
We usually start showing our litters. Obviously, it depends on what else is going on, but we try to get their first look at sort of 6-7 weeks of age. We do it. We usually have a couple, maybe three or four sheep. Quiet, obviously, trainers that are pretty well broken in, and we put them on all together just for confidence. And the only expectation, or the only thing we're really looking for then, is to get them having a bit of a look, so we go in there and run around with them and try to amp them up a little bit, build the confidence in them. Obviously every litter is different. Some litters are like straight out of the gate, they're all out and eyeing and working, and then others take a little bit longer for you to, for them to go, oh, hang on, the sheep move, and then they get into it. So we just try to do a few little exposures early on when we can. It also helps, obviously, to get an idea of if we're keeping any, which ones we're going to keep and which ones are we going to move on, and that sort of thing. I think we usually have a bit of an idea before we put them on stock, though, just from their general confidence and that sort of thing around the camp. But obviously you don't know what they're going to look like on stock until you put them on there. And then when do we train them? When we get a chance. In our time together, it's ranged from 8 weeks to 2 years, something like that. It's there's no hard and fast. We try, I think it's important for them to have some exposure, obviously young, and that's why we do it. But I think that early handling and socializing and that sort of thing is more important. I think obviously you need to train things in your dogs, but they've got that instinct there. If you can get those early foundations, that instinct is always going to be there. If you've done that early socialization and you've got a good, well-rounded pup that's had that good early exposure, I think, it makes it possible to bring out what's in there later on, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. So do you do any training away from stock?
Yeah, we do. Again, our whole life is time dependent.
Yeah.
But yes, we do. Different litters, we do different things. I mean, obviously, all the handling and stuff, but then we try to do some recalls and a bit of sitting and that sort of thing. And I know some people really frown on using a bit of food and that sort of thing to reward them, but particularly I think when they're young and you're teaching them, that when they say they're learning to learn, anything that the dog finds reinforcing is beneficial. And obviously if there's a sheep there, then the dogs are not taking food, but when you're off stock, anything that dog really loves that you can reward them with is only going to help, because it's helping them with that connection as well. So we go to work, we get paid, so it makes sense that dogs would want to get paid, and obviously when you're working stock, the work itself can be what you're getting paid with. But
absolutely.
I think that it doesn't hurt to get paid a bit extra,
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. Like I think I mentioned before, putting deposits in the bank. I think I made that comment, and that's working for whatever, but getting paid for it. Whether it's on stock or not. Like your payment on stock can be you do what we ask you, you get your stock.
That's it.
I think that's important myself. And any kind of, is there an age there, Fred, where you like to see a pup doing something and then you think, oh, if it's not doing something by a particular age, you like to move it on? Because I'm assuming you kind of like a bit of an early starter.
Yeah, I guess so. I do. I have been surprised a few times with late starters, actually, too. I must admit. We've had. You always like that nice pup that's out the gate quick, like it wants to work straight up and showing you everything that you want early. That's the one you'll gravitate to. But yeah, I have also been surprised by the dog that I haven't been able to get rid of, that's sat there and not shown a lot, and then suddenly gone snap and is into it, and I've ended up selling the one I was originally going to keep and kept the one there. Actually, Minky is a bit of an example of that.
Minky was scared.
Minky was frightened of sheep to start with.
Yeah.
So
would leave the pen. Was scared of them. If he had been somewhere else, he probably would have, got a new home if he was lucky, and maybe a bullet if he was less lucky. But once he realised that sheep aren't scary, he's been a great dog. He went to work when he was 9 months old or something at Kangaroo Mount, so he was doing miles straight off the bat.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
No. Yeah, once he clicked, he was away. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and how we know it's a bit of a lottery and you touched on it there. How do you guys go about picking a pup for yourselves?
It doesn't. I guess it probably can depend a bit on what I'm lacking in the team at the time, and if I know often I've selected if I've got a team of bullheads that I've been looking for something a bit paddocky, I'll start leaning towards a dog that's showing a bit more distance and a bit more patience and doesn't want to come inside that bubble too much. But it sort of depends on what I'm looking for at the time. But but look, I suppose generally a good balance of work is always, you always look at that pup that shows it's got a bit of everything. You'll try.
We do often try to look out for, when you've got pups, obviously, I mean, they're so little, trying to head sheep can be tricky, but there's usually, that standout pup that is really trying their hardest to get to the head and that sort of thing. And I think that's often the one what we tend to be keen on.
Yeah.
Just because even though they've got tiny little legs, they've got that desperation to try and get there. Which obviously
like on attitude.
Yeah, attitude is important.
Yeah, temperament.
Yeah,
definitely.
I like confidence too. Like Rain, which is Ash's mum, she's mine. She was going to be my work dog, and then we started having kids. But I picked her from that litter because she was the first one of the litter to come up to the rest of the dogs with me. They were living around the house, and she was the one that was confident enough to go near the 15 barking dogs and get out and about. And I really like to see that confidence in them without that I guess that their natural confidence is sort of, I don't know, I find that interesting. I like that. I've worked with a lot of dogs that are lacking in confidence, just general confidence. So I guess maybe I sort of think, well, that's nice if they've already got it.
Something less to work on,
yeah.
right? Work on something else instead.
Yeah.
And once those dogs start switching on and you've got some basic commands and stuff on them, is most of your training then done on the job, or are you still, setting time aside to train them?
Look, when last couple of years aside, I did spend a fair bit of time in the training pen. Trying to give him a mix of both. Getting the miles under their belt, but I would spend a fair bit of time in the training pen too. That's probably the best answer. The combination.
Yeah, you sort of get a bit on them and then get them out to work.
Yeah,
and then when time would. When you can, you get a bit more training into them. And
Yeah, and Catherine actually touched on it before about your training there and not having a great setup at the moment. What is your ideal setup for training?
Well, we actually, with the change of roles, we changed houses, so that's why we don't have the setup now. But where we were at the house where I was livestock manager, it was pretty good actually. We could walk out the back door. We had the dogs in an old shearing shed, which was adjoined to a set of yards. It had a bit of a paddock area, a race, and everything was basically there. And so there was a small yard with a bit of yard set up in there, and then right next to that was a little bit bigger paddock if you wanted to go out into a little bit bigger area. But I'm sort of talking, an acre at the most, or it wouldn't even be that, would it? No, and then we had another little paddock again that was sort of would have been about 5 acres. So it was perfect. You could do a bit for whatever stage the dog was at, and we sort of would have the yard set up, and then might have, I think the middle size area, we sort of just left that blank just to have a bit of room to work a dog around. And out in the big area, we had a few obstacles and whatnot, so we could sort of cater to whatever dog we had at the time. And it was basically walk out the back door and it was all there.
I think the only thing I would change about where we were is I would have a smaller yard for when because the main training yard was still a bit big when you're running around with little pups, especially when you're pregnant with human babies and that.
Yeah, we never had
there was a lot of running.
We never actually had a round yard. That'd be something we'd add in as a round yard, I think, a little round yard for pups.
Yeah.
That's one thing we didn't have, but yeah, no, it was good. It was straight out the back door. It was all there. It was easy. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at
walk past the fridge on the way. Grab a cold one.
Yeah. No.
Actually, it was because we had the fridge in the dog trailer, and you'd walk past the dog trailer.
I did too.
And we did use that. So you're spot on there, Dan.
Love it. Yeah. And while we're talking about pups, do you guys breed many pups?
We've had a bit of a hiatus since we moved here. So we've got some 1 week old pups now, but we haven't had any for nearly 2 years. Before that, we were probably 2 or 3 litters a year, maybe, just depending on what we had time for, what we were looking at, what opportunities were up at the time. So I mean, we do want to keep going. Obviously, we put a lot of time and effort into what we've got, over in the kennels. So we want to continue with that. It's just finding the balance between Fred's full-on job and 3 full-on kids and trying to, like, puppies are a lot of work. I think people think, people that don't do it think, oh yeah, that's just easy. You just put your dog and they just go and have some puppies, but not if you're doing it properly. So, there's a lot of time and effort involved in lots of cleaning with puppies.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I think, we'll try and maybe do 1 or 2 litters a year, perhaps.
Yeah.
Just see how we go. Obviously, as the kids get older, it's easier. And the kids are great there's nothing better than the kids for puppy socialization, because,
Absolutely.
they are just,
And cleaning kennels out once they're older.
No, they bail on you. Trust me. They go, yeah, we'll help. They'll grab the hose, then they'll bail.
Yeah. We can hope, can't we?
That's it.
We'll just say you can't have the Wi-Fi password unless you help with the dogs.
Yeah. What are you guys looking for when considering, like, joinings and all that?
Again, probably in the past, it would have been what we were lacking in our current team. So it'd be if we're lacking a paddock dog, we'd be sort of looking to breed something that would fit that role. Or if some of our more intense dogs were getting a bit old, we'd be looking for replacements for them. So and occasionally we've bred, haven't we, where we've had requests for a certain bloodline that we've done in the past, and if people have come to us and said, if you breed them, we'd really want a pup.
I think our general overall aim has really, up until, when we sort of took a bit of a break, is trying to, we had really that great strength in Josh, and some of his kids are, probably not as ultimately strong as Josh, but on that way. But Josh was also very hard-headed. So trying to retain the strength and intensity, but get a bit more biddability into them, just to make it a little bit less stressful, a few less grey hairs, but still having that good work dog. You know what I mean? Like trying to keep that tougher line, but maybe just a bit easier to get along with, because it is, I mean, probably not so much now, but I'd say 5 years ago, if people would inquire about getting one of our pups, I'd be like, well, yeah, but they're not for the faint-hearted. If you're wanting to just go out and cruise out there with them, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to be on them, and they do a lot of work for you, but they can also run amok.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You just answered about 5 different questions between
Yeah.
I had him, we had Knock as well. So kind of you stole a couple of bags, I think, from people there, but that's I love the
sorry.
depth you gave me. No, don't be sorry. You answered it fantastic. I actually do have a question. Like, you guys have had some like pretty good size there that people have used in their own breeding programs. How about outside size for you guys? Have you used many outside size, or do you plan on it? And why? Or how do you go about picking particular outside size?
I'll mention one in the new. Well, one sire we've used. We used Boca Wonder. And he probably the main reason there, he possesses probably a bit more distance and natural paddock work than our current line, and we were trying to bring a bit of that into and a bit more biddability too, whilst still maintaining, he was still a very good yard dog and reasonable and all other facets, but he lent that way. And so I'm not sure if I've lost the question here, but that was one sire we looked at, but we've used a number of times actually, and had some good pups.
Yeah, we try to look at what the bitch has got and what would complement what her natural tendencies are, like I guess, when we put Trooper over Emily, Trooper of Andrew King's.
What's his prefix? We should say that. I've forgotten the prefix of him.
Trooper's not Kingsleaf. Trooper's
Is it Coogee?
Yes, that's it.
Coogee,
Coogee Trooper.
I'm all over
You are all over it. Look at you go.
Looking.
Laura's just pumping for anyone that can't see it out there.
Looking to put him with Emily. Emily's a great dog, but as we were saying, she's not got a heap of strength. So trying to bring that in a bit more through Trooper.
Yeah, a bit more strength through Trooper. Yeah.
And just trying to find ones that complement, what we've got. With we don't tend to put two dogs that are the same together.
Yep.
Yeah. And then not too far removed either. It's a funny balancing act. Sort of.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah. Sort of. You don't want to go complete opposites, but you want them sort of nearly from the same base, but slightly heading in different directions, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it's probably the way.
Absolutely. Otherwise, if you're at two ends of the spectrum, you're going to get either side, and if you're lucky, you may get something in the middle, but the probability of that is very slim, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And even when you do it, you're still going to go one way or the other with a lot of the litter. But you're hoping you'll get that. You'll get the one or two pups in there that you're looking for. Often the ones that still swing either way are still useful in their own right for other people, or you know what I mean. They'll just lean one way or the other. Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you believe that a sire has any more influence over the pups or the bitch, or do you reckon it's an even split? What's your opinion there?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
I think genetics is genetics, and obviously, if you're bringing them up the same, then who knows what you're going to be getting. But you can't. You're not getting more genes from the sire than you are from the dam. So I don't know. I don't think you get one more of a type from one than the other. That's the scientist in me just says, well, genetically, that's it's how the genes combine. So you might, in any given litter, you might get pups that are more like the sire, but in another litter you might get them more like the dam, or you might get a combo, or who knows what you're going to get. It's the same if you look at people. Some people's kids all look exactly the same and like one parent, and people's kids look completely different, or they look, exactly. Or they're, you can say, oh, I can see you've got their nose and their whatever. And I think, I mean, obviously you're talking more about workability, but I don't see why that would be any different. You know, is there how they work and their instinct and all of that sort of thing. I don't think you could scientifically say it comes more from one than the other. But I don't know. I'm sure people would disagree with me.
Yeah, this is in our humble opinion.
No, and that's your opinion, right? And that's cool. And that's the beauty about what we do here, right? To learn a bit about everyone. And
with what I've said there.
No, there's nothing wrong with what you said. I know people would disagree.
I love it, guys. And like I said, like you guys would see it a bit as well, and even within your pups, right? And having a few around and seeing certain dogs throw closer to themselves and whatnot. So that's awesome. And while we're talking about pups and dogs here, like, well, obviously we're always talking about dogs, but what advice would you give to someone looking to buy their first pup or their dog?
Well, I suppose look at your enterprise, what the sort of work you are you undertake, I suppose, what your operation, what stock classes you have. Like, for example, if you're working cattle, well, you're not, you need strength. You're not gonna look at lines but you're gonna look for lines that have got natural strength in them. If you're, or at the same token, if you're a dipping contractor, you're not going to want a nice wide soft paddock dog. You're looking, you're looking for something that's very natural in the yard. So you look at the parentage and the pedigree behind them, and try to follow a line that's that suits your type of your operation, I guess, or what you do. Yeah,
I reckon that's great advice, and you guys obviously deal with it. Have a whole heap of the dogs you like and whatnot, and what suits you. When you get people come your way and they're after a pup and they say, I'm after this wide, touchy paddock dog, and you obviously breed dogs with a bit of strength, like the majority of the time, how upfront do you have to be with people in this day and age about that?
Extremely. Extremely. Yeah.
And do you think the ball gets pulled over a lot of people's eyes out there?
Yeah. Look, if we've bred an intense litter and somebody comes there, we'll say, well, look, this is nothing like what you want, but here's some people, we would refer them on to somebody else, that would have what they're looking for, rather than give them, because we don't want to sell a pup and then find out that it wasn't what they want and it's been put down or shipped on, or have them come back and they're not happy. We go out of our way to make sure they're happy with the pup they've got.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And when you sell them as pups, you never know exactly what they're going to be, but you want to be as close to what you think that dog is going to be. You want to try and match it up with the right person. Same with temperament, because of that intensity, there's sometimes you're like, I just don't think this kind of dog is going to suit your temperament, because I think you have to be upfront. I mean, if you give all that advice in the world and they say, no, I really want that, who are you to say that,
but as a breeder, you've done a responsible thing, right? That's so admirable. I believe there's so many people out there still that are just so happy just to sell a pup and grab their coin. So for you guys to go to that level, that's fantastic.
Well, I think it's just the same of a lot like an interview. You get to interview them just as much as they get to interview you. So you get to ask them what they want from their dogs, and they get to ask you what your dogs are doing and about the parents and everything. It goes both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's not just with pups though too. Like, we've sold a lot of starter dogs, and we always try to be really honest of what the dog is and not just say, oh, look, they're awesome at this, this, and this. And you can say, well, sometimes they're a bit of a rabbit in this situation, and making sure that people understand, what they're getting, especially with a starter dog that's not fully going. They're not a complete product yet, and we also, I mean, with all of our dogs that we sell, but particularly with, you know, you started and trained and that sort of thing, is, you know, making sure that they realize that if you're having a problem with the dog, let us know, you know, give us a call. And because, you know, I mean, particularly the started and going dogs that we sell, Fred does most of the training. You know, he knows the dog. He can say, oh yeah, no, the best approach for that dog is to try this, you know, and is that after sales support kind of thing, you know, so that they're actually getting what they need from that, you know, and the dog's getting what they deserve as well. In you know, if they've got, if we sell a dog to someone that's willing to come back and say, look, I'm just not sure how to go about this in this situation, and they're trying to do the best for the dog, you know, we want to help them do that. And, you know, because ultimately it's the dogs that we've bred and put out there. So we want to know that they're doing well and being looked after well and doing what they need to do.
It's your name on it just as much as it is theirs.
Yeah, that's it.
And with that attitude, that's why you guys have got a good name. So hats off to you. It's awesome.
Thanks.
And
you're welcome.
So on that, Casey Hayes has asked, if there was one dog that you could have back that you've sold, who would it be and why?
I know.
Smudge.
Yeah, probably Smudge.
Or Edge.
Edge or Smudge.
Edge or Smudge.
Or even, what's the dog I sold Queensland? We sold the Queensland.
Oh, Onyx.
Onyx.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have quite a few, actually.
And what was it?
We've sold a lot of dogs for, you know, we need to, like, you know, we've had wedding dogs and we've had Christmas present dogs for kids and dogs that we don't really want to sell, but, you know.
Probably, probably Smudge, though, I reckon.
Yeah.
That would make, Derek? If he's listening, he'd be very happy with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And what is it about Smudge?
He's really intelligent and really big heart. I don't know. He was a really likable dog, and he had a bit. He was a very well-rounded. He had just a lot of all-round ability. He probably wasn't. He wasn't an absolute superstar at anything, but he was above average at most things. Yeah,
and easy to get along with.
And very biddable. Yeah.
Just a sweet dog, but a good worker.
And he was called Smudge because he was a black and tan, and he had like this red splotch on the top of his head.
It was a smudge. Yeah,
it's like somebody put a bit of paint on the top of his head. Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Sounds like a cool dog.
Yeah.
And we might touch on a bit of trialing here. How long, you mentioned trialing there a few times earlier there, Fred. How long have you been trialing for?
Oh, geez, I've got to think. A very long time.
How old were the big kids when you started trialing?
Well, Lyndon was a baby.
So he was born in 2004. So 19 years.
Holy dooly. I don't know if I want to talk about
that. How old was that? Was the answers.
I honestly didn't think it was that long, but that's about right, yeah.
Yeah, it's nearly 19.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Catherine?
With stock dogs, I started trialing in 2013. I think it was 2013. I did a lot of I used to compete in agility and obedience and stuff like that before that, but with stock dogs, that's when I started trialing.
Actually, mentioning that, how did you go letting go of some control when you switched on to stock dogs? Is that something you struggled with?
Really, I really did. When, you know, from my background with, you know, pet dogs and obedience and, like, you know, if I say sit, you sit the first time I say it, and you sit until I tell you to move. And that's not always right when you're working stock, because then the sheep will move and the dog has to cover or whatever. So I found I found that really difficult to let go of to start with. And because it was so ingrained in me, because of what I was training, that was just how it with pet dogs, with family dogs, it needs to be, the clearer it is what they are expected to do, the easier it is going to be for people to get along with them. But obviously because you've got the livestock aspect, it's not so black and white all the time. And so you do have to let go of it. But I found that, it was a struggle to start with, I think. Now I'm just like, oh, whatever. The dog trainer's been beaten out of me into a different kind of dog trainer now.
I think a comment Catherine made, particularly with Inman when I was trialling, she mentioned to me once, I would say something to Inman and he wouldn't always obey it. And I said to her one day, I said, often he knows better than I do. So half the time I'm just suggesting and we'll see if he agrees.
It really is like that. I suppose sometimes, in agility, if I'd make a handling mistake or something, I'd apologise to the dog. But certainly I'm sure I've never apologised to a dog more than when I'm yard trialling, where I'll be like, I'll tell them to go one way and they're like, oh, yeah, sorry, no, you're right. Go the other way.
My bad.
I got picked on that the other day. Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Like, a judge said the other day, you just apologise to your dog. And I did. I stuffed up. So I totally get your pain there.
Yeah. I've been in trials where like Trigger will look at me and he's like, how do I do it? And I'll look back and I go, I don't know, mate. See what you can work out. I don't know how to deal with that. I don't have enough stock experience to tell you how to do that, buddy. I've done what I think, so have at it. See what you can do.
And no agility training for you, trialing for you, Fred. But from the sound of things, you could have done a bit of trick trialing with your dog.
Yeah, look, I've never done any agility, but I was really impressed with it to watch it. The really good, especially the really top competitors. There's it's when you talk about connection building and if you watch a top agility dog, like that connection and drive to want to please is something out of this world, of how hard they hit the obstacles and with how much energy. It's I've sat and watched some top top level agility trials, and they blow my mind how much the dogs want to please and how athletic they are. It's quite amazing, actually.
Yeah,
absolutely. And what other disciplines of stock dog training, or what disciplines of stock dog training, I suppose, have you competed in, and what do you prefer?
Look,
or do you have a preference?
Look, I suppose I've done mostly yard dog trialing, and enjoyed that a lot. I've probably pretty much done them all. I've done the 3 sheep, yard dog, utility, cattle dog trialing. I think I like watching the ultimate test, and it's not practical to do it everywhere. But I think the one I probably do like the most, it's not one I've mastered, would probably be the utility trialing. Would be the one I like the most, where you've got the paddock obstacles and the yard work together. I think that is the ultimate test of a dog, but it's not always practical to run them. But yeah,
it's also, from a training time perspective, particularly with, like when we were really doing a lot of trialing, obviously for that, the paddock section sort of training, you need more time firstly, but because our dogs at the time were quite intense and quite direct, quite a lot of training would have to go in the paddock to be competitive, into utility. And so I think that's sort of what has been the biggest obstacle is time.
Yeah.
Getting the training time to be able to actually get them to where they need to be.
Yeah. But Yeah, so definitely the utility, but there's quite a few similar things around now, but I really enjoyed the USD that Matt Sherwood run.
You know it's running again.
Is
I
it?
told you that.
I did see something, yeah.
Yeah.
But where it was a trial over all the disciplines, I thought that was a really good test of a dog. Yeah, again, it's a lot to run one, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, you gonna make some time for it in the next coming years with it starting back up.
I'd love to have a go again. Yeah, look, I mean, maybe as the kids get a bit older and we might have a bit more time. Like, I have started to try and sort out a bit of a training area. I haven't been back to it for a while. But yeah, we will always endeavour to get going again, and hopefully in time to come we'll start to get a bit of a go at it.
I think once the kids are a little bit less hands-on, it'll be easier.
Yeah.
You know, like at the moment, to try and get out training, I mean, even just with Fraser at 1, you know, like he's either going to have to be strapped to my back or in the pram, and then if he's got if he's strapped to me, then I've got a limited range of motion and a limited length of time that I can carry him before my body argues, because I'm not a spring chicken. And if he's in the pram, then you've got a limited amount of time before he cracks the shits and goes, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And, you know, and that's why I was saying earlier, you know, it needs to be quick and easy to be able to get out and train, because particularly, you know, I mean, for anyone to get out there and, you know, you can get out there and do 10 minutes if it's just around there. But if it takes you half an hour to get the sheep in and get the dogs over to the yards and to do, you know, like it's just too hard.
Yeah.
And with kids, it's just not even possible, I don't think. I mean, some people do it, but they have more patience than I do.
Drop them in the puppy pen on the way over.
Well, this is it. You know, I've got the patience for dogs or kids, but not both together at the same
time. and what is it about trialing? Why do you enjoy a trial?
Yeah, that's a good question. I love the thrill of competition. I do. It I you know, putting a lot of effort into a dog that you really like, and spending that time in the training pen or out at work, and then getting the opportunity to showcase his talent, whether he wins or not. The thrill of competition's good. Camaraderie, the people you get to trial with, I think is another. You know, you're hanging around like-minded people, so yeah, that's good as well. What else?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, the competition and you know, the whole environment. I think, particularly, you know, here in New South Wales, we really enjoy the trial, the people we're trialing with. I think it's a good environment. I love that, you know, that there's a lot of trialing kids now, and so the kids all get about together, and particularly when you're not living close to family, it's, you know, I mean, we've been out of it for a bit, but it kind of feels like that, you know, they've got cousins that aren't cousins kind of thing, and you know, they all look after each other, and I really like that. I mean, that's not a dog aspect, but I think that's a, you know, when you're trying to go to trials with kids, having that nice environment and knowing that, you know, everyone's just got half an eye on the kids too, you know, that, you know, you're obviously watching your kids, but if someone sees your 3-year-old wandering away, suddenly they're like, hang on a second, you know, and they bring him back, and it just makes it possible for people to be able to trial, which, you know, so I think the environment is important, but you know, just getting out there. I certainly, from my perspective, when I'm not out working the dogs during the week, and I often don't even have time, you know, a lot of the time when I've been trialing Trig and Storm, the only time they actually get to do anything is when we're at a trial. But I kind of look at it, okay, they're not going to, you know, be at the top of the class and they're not going to be winning, but that's time that, you know, I'm spending that time with that dog, and it allows me to dedicate that 10 minutes or that 15 minutes to them, which sometimes is really hard, you know, when you've got screaming kids and that sort of thing. And that's what I like about it too, is you've got, that is my time with that dog, and we're just going to see what we can do, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that there are so many, like you said, my kids, they'll complain, oh, dog trial, and then on the way there, like, is this kid going to be there? Is that kid going to be there? And then we got to leave, and they're throwing down because we're leaving. And go, wait a minute, like yesterday you complained we're going to another dog trial.
Yeah,
and then they're
that's
like,
it. Can I go home with such
weekend
and such?
ever? You know, like, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, until next week, and then that was the best weekend. So away just from the dogs. I'm glad you highlighted that, Catherine. That's a pretty important little aspect.
Yeah, I think it just makes it easier knowing that the kids are going to have fun, and they're just being kids. You know, they come home and they're filthy, absolutely filthy, and you're just kind of like, oh, it's just going to happen, you know. So just get dirty and whatever, we'll deal with it later.
Yeah, and like-minded kids to the same degree that are happy to go out and do the same sort of thing.
There's actually a comment here from Karen Higgins.
She says, "That's so much." Something I love about the trials that so many are watching out for others' kids.
And there's a lady who's got grown-up kids and a grandchild herself, right? And she's out there herself just admiring the way everyone's interacting with everyone's children.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. And that, you know, time permitting, when we can get back into it more, I think that's going to be really, really good for the kids to be around that sort of thing. And, you know, they're not... I mean, they spend a bit of time watching iPads at trials maybe, but most of the time they're running around and, you know, being rat bags and having fun with the other kids. And I think that's really good for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you want to grab that?
Yeah. Another question from Casey. She has asked, is there anything you'd like to see change in the yard dog trialing courses?
Ooh.
I know what you used to say to that question.
What do you say?
You used to say, like, particularly in New South Wales, the courses are very. I mean, they're obviously different, but they're very similar setup all the time. You know, whereas like in Victoria, if you go to Sheepfench at Hamilton, there's a curved race, and you know it's all just a bit different. It's not. You know, into the drench, out of the drench, into the draft, out of the draft, onto the, you know what I mean? Like it's and that was your, I'm not taking flack for this. That used to be your answer, Fred. was that you'd like it to mix that up a little bit.
I suppose.
I mean, it's a practicality.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. Why? Look, I think a lot of things that I used to think have actually come in. I know there used to be no driving or controlled crossing a lot in dog trialing, but in the last few years, well, I mean, the last couple of years I haven't been in it, but before we stopped, I noticed that a lot more controlled crosses and driving were coming in. So there was a few more things like that, and then there used to sort of be no obstacles in courses, like actual sort of paddocky type obstacles, and I notice now too, in bigger courses they'll sometimes have an obstacle. So a lot of things, and that's probably people with similar sort of ideas to what I had, I suppose, that have brought it in. But
that is mixing up the course too. It's you know, I mean, obviously there's a lot of permanent yards, and so there's not so much you can do with that. But by adding in, you know, an obstacle or something like that, it's a way of changing it up without having to change the yards.
Well, I think this year, what are we? We're in April. I think 3 or 4 trials I've been to this year, they've had a touch. You know,
that's a good one too.
A lot of sheep around you and a touch. Like, I think that's fantastic.
It is good, no.
And you think some of that as well is because the, you know, there's no secret. You got to run a pretty high score to make a final these days, because there's a lot more skilled handlers of a higher. There might have been like a handful of really good handlers before, but over like the last, say, 10 years, there's a lot more competition. So you've got to make it a bit harder to try and find points.
I think you're right. And yeah, I think the more different things you can have like that, you know, it improves trialing for everyone, doesn't it? Like, you know, to be able to get obstacles, you may need to, you know, and once upon a time you get away with a dog with a bit of natural distance. And if you could rely on his natural ability to get you around the course, but by adding these extra things in now, you know, it's sort of, I mean, this is probably a poor example, but, you know, it's sort of mandatory that you need a good reverse on your dog to be able to compete on that obstacle or you know what I mean? You need to have those extra levers. And so by doing to be at the top, so by adding those things in, it lifts the standard overall, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, because I can sort of remember back to a time where not many people had a reverse on a dog, and now it seems that everybody has a reverse on their dog these days. Yeah, you know. So it's a standard lift, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you guys have a favorite trial to participate in, or one that you haven't and you'd like to?
My probably favorite trial in Australia, I reckon, is Hamilton Sheep Mansion. It's a great trial. It's a
freezing cold.
Yeah, you'll freeze. But you can't find anywhere to park. It's terrible. But
or stay.
Yeah, or stay.
You have to probably book your accommodation now for 2033.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a big paddock section. Like quite a big. Like, I mean, it's not huge, but for a yard trial, it's a big paddock area to cast into, and it's just one of those trials that you've like to go up the race. It's not a 4-shot; it's a square pen plonked on the end of the race. So you've really got to be able to get the sheep to go up the race. You've got to be able to have good control both sides of your dog. There's no given in any part of the course. If you can win Hamilton Sheep Mansion, you know you've had to master a lot of different angles to be able to get it done. A great trial, Hamilton Sheep Mansion. Yeah,
I know.
Sounds like it.
And very well run too. I'm not sure who's running it now, but Ian O'Connell. It wouldn't be just him, but he does a great job of running it. It was well run, well sponsored. Yeah, done very well. Yeah.
Dalgettie's a good one too.
Yeah, Dalgetty.
I really like Dalgetty. We haven't been the last however many years, and it's a bit tricky because it's on a Sunday, and getting kids to school on a Monday is a bit hard now. But I love that you sit between the two rings so you can see what's going on. Good courses, tough sheep.
Very tough sheep. Yeah, Monaro weathers.
Great location. Yeah. I really like Dalgetty.
Yeah.
Good. Always well run.
Yeah.
Really good trial.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to Dalgetty, I recommend you go. It's a good one.
There you go. There you heard it there. Get to Dalgetty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one.
And how about nerves? Are you guys getting them, and how are you handling them? Well, the better question is, do you reckon you're going to get nervous when you start trialing again?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I reckon I will. Definitely. Yeah, I when I first started trying, it suffered terribly with nerves, but as the story goes, the more you do it, the better you get. But still, especially in the big ones, when I was trialing a lot, like the Australians and state championships, yeah, I can remember trying to blow on the whistle or try to whistle, and I'm shaking that much. I can't get it to work properly. Yeah.
Gonna go back to a referee's football whistle.
Yeah. I probably have less because I don't do any work, so I can't have high expectations if I haven't done any training. Yeah. And actually, when I ran at Yass the other week, you know, I ran Asher and Sapphire, and as I was going in with Asher, Bill Luff was the judge, and he's like, "You feeling confident, Catherine?" I said, "Oh no, Bill." And he's like, "Oh, you should be confident." I'm like, "Mate, I haven't run this dog since Addie was a baby. She's nearly 5, and you know, we're just going in for a bit of fun, you know." And it's nice to run a dog with no expectations. You know, it's just quite relaxing to just go in there and go, "Let's see if you'll work for me, and can we do it?" And you know, But yeah, I don't know if I ever train a dog. When I train a dog again and get back into it, maybe I'll probably start this again. Yeah, it'll happen. I'm sure it'll happen at some point.
And having done your schools and running your schools and have people that, thinking about trialing, but then haven't taken it up for whatever reason, what advice would you give to those people? Someone that thinks that they think, I'd like to have a go, but I just don't know. And if my dog's not, and you always hear, my dog's not good enough, or, they're kind of just second guessing themselves.
I say give it a go.
Well, I'd say if you're nervous, go and come up and start talking to people who are doing it. I think, go and go up to where the scoreboard is, where all the competitors are, and strike up a conversation, and maybe let someone know what you'd be interested in. They're a pretty nice bunch of people. I mean, if you don't even start trialing straight away, somebody will generally say, well, you can come out to my place and we'll have a bit of a play around and at least get you started that way. I think, come and have a chat. I think it's probably the best. Yeah.
There's always someone that will talk you around the course with someone too.
Yeah, someone will talk you around.
Everyone's there because they like dogs, all right, and most people like people, and a good yarn. So you always, if it's the worst thing is you might actually leave with a mate.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it. And people like talking about their own dogs. So if you're nervous about approaching someone, talk to them about the dog that's on the end of the lead that they're holding on to, and start it that way. Yeah,
definitely. I love that. That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
What about?
And if you're not sure what to say, pat the dog while you
ask first.
Well, yes.
And what about your position with Romani and everything, Fred? Is there any advice for someone wanting to, get a career in the ag industry?
Any advice? Look, the agriculture industry in the last sort of, would it be 10 years or 5 years, is actually the landscape, or even within the last 10 years, the landscape of working on the lands has changed quite a bit. It's a lot more scientific. It's a lot. There's a lot more opportunity now. It's more lucrative now than it ever has been before. Advice.
Research your potential employer.
Research your potential employer. There's opportunities for advancement for younger people with a bit of education and a bit of go, and a lucrative fulfilling career, I think. Like I know in the past jobs on the land were sort of considered a lower form job, more labourer type job, where it's actually not like that now. It's these are all farm businesses that are run to be profitable, and and use best practice and animal welfare. It's all very scientific. It's very interesting, and there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of opportunity. So,
look. In your new role, Fred, are you involved in the hiring process now?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you look for in your candidates?
Initiative,
work ethic, attention to detail is a big one for me. I really do like attention to detail. And
being willing to ask questions.
Yeah.
If you're not sure.
Yeah. I think another big one too is communication. You got to. I like this. I like to see if I can pick someone who's a good communicator, especially with staff. I think communication is one of the biggest problems that can if it's not right, it can cause a lot of problems. I hope that was helpful.
No, it is, mate. It is. Like anyone out there, I think you gave a bit of a scope of what a potential employer is looking for, and better yourself to be able to be a valid candidate in the process. And while we're talking about talking, mate, is there anyone that you'd like us to see have a chat, sit down and have a chat with on Dog Talk?
Yeah, I've got one.
Communicating.
Oh yeah. Has he done it?
I don't know if you've had him on. I don't think you have. He'll be probably mortified that I've mentioned his name, but Andrew King, I think would be awesome to have on. Yeah,
I have spoken to Andrew King about it, and we are just trying to tee up a time. So watch this space. It's going to be sooner rather than later. So I think Andrew will be a great guy to talk to as well.
Yeah.
He's on the radar.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate. It has come to that time of the night, and we apologise. There were a few questions that came up tonight, but we'd already spoken about those topics or touched on them. And some of our answers were answered in great detail, so they already were spoken about. But was there a question tonight that stood out for you guys? And they will win a bag of Enduro high energy food for Working Dogs with Real Kangaroo Meat.
I don't know. We can't see the questions.
I know one that. Well, I think there was one there that got him thinking a bit, but I'll wait to see if he mentions it. Yeah.
What was it?
What question? You can pick it.
Well, I have a terrible memory. I have to write everything down.
There was a particular question that got you talking about a dog that you used to own and moved on.
Oh yeah, Casey asked about Smudge. Yeah,
she did, and that brought back some good memories for you. And you started going through a few different dogs.
Yeah. There's a lot of dogs. Yeah.
No, that was a good question.
It was. Casey, if you want to send us your details or get in contact with us, there's a bag of Enduro coming your way. And Catherine and Fred, there's also a bag. Thanks for getting on tonight. There's a bag of Enduro coming your way as well.
Oh, nice. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
One last question, though.
Not going to get away with it that easy.
Would you guys rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
One duck the size of a horse. I think 20 horses the size of a duck. What do you think? Or one duck the size of a horse?
I was informed that we'd get asked this question, and I was told about some very good answers. So we can't copy any of those.
Oh.
So we better do that. So yeah, we'll have to take on the 20 horses the size of a duck, I think. But
well, it sounds like you got the pack to help you back you up there as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Guys, thank you very much for your time tonight. We really appreciate you jumping on, especially with young Fraser sitting in your lap there. We heard him start to get a bit restless there. So really appreciate you guys giving us putting some time aside for us.
No worries at all. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
No, you're more than welcome. And to everyone that logged on tonight and everyone listening back, thank you very much. And please remember, we learn every day, and a day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.